Truck smells like barbecue sitting there idle.
Huh?
Your truck smelled like barbecue.
Oh, I'm like, it's idling? I'm sure I shut it off.
No. I was getting my stuff in.
Yeah. It's,
That's that additive real estate thing to draw people in.
Right.
It's that scent, that after scent. He puts it in the exhaust pipe so it smells good so people follow
That
him.
is so funny. These freaking brokers and God, they'll do
But just do anything, yeah, draw people in, you know? It's like, hey, marketing, right?
exactly.
Real the barbecue broker. You're skewing
BBQ broker.
It's a new marketing technique. Drive through town and they'll follow you around.
Okay, we're hello? We're live now?
What?
Yeah, I don't think I'll bring that up at this time.
It's included in the budget.
Okay, we'll get started. Tom?
Gentlemen, thanks for your time. I sent your budgets in, everything's broken down. We kept everything extremely flat except for utilities. Of course, utilities are eating our lunch right now. We had months last winter where even our gas bills were running about 18 grand a month just to heat those buildings. And that was keeping everything at 60 degrees. Even our indoor arena, we were keeping it just low enough to keep the water from freezing. So utilities are probably our biggest eater. The other thing that we've got is wages. We've got our wage corrections according to industry standard. We presented it to you. Those are really the only two increases we've got are wages and utilities, a few supply things, but they're minimal. The wage study not only includes increasing all of the people to get them into the industry standard, but when COVID hit, we retired one person off of our staff, and we've never replaced that person, but we're back up to, we're running 345 days a year rented, and we need to put another person back on there. We're just wearing ourselves out. So if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them, but everything's pretty self-explanatory. Our budget's pretty flat on our capitals. If you've been out and looked at the new asphalt that was just laid, it looks really nice. We got rid of a lot of the really bad stuff along the main roadways coming in and out and around the industrial building where it looks like we can put on some nice events now instead of a gravelly parking lot. So if there's anything that you'd like me to answer or go through, be more than happy to.
Tom, on the utilities itself, is it across the board on all of them? Because we're hearing that from everybody coming in here. Is it?
It is.
Okay.
Water's up, electricity's way up, but gas was our hardest fighting one. And again, you can, on your indoor arena, your hourly rentals and stuff, you could raise your prices, but then nobody's going to rent it. We're already up around $35, $40 an hour, 50 on some of it if they're using all the chutes. You can't go any higher than that, so there's absolutely no way you can get a break-even price on it. You'd be over $100 an hour, and for a public facility, you're just not going to get that. I'd like to tell you could, but you can't.
I have a question. I'm particularly interested in wages for our employees. And so, as a commissioner, I know that there's your board and they make these decisions, but they get the money from us, is my understanding. So what I'm looking at here is your salary range of between 110 and 160 per year for the manager. And then I'm looking at your current salary of 101,000, but you've worked there 40 years.
Yeah, 41.
So, as my own opinion as a commissioner is that, and I don't speak for the other commissioners, but I think we've been trying to get everybody to market so that we keep employees who, I think at 40 years, you're one of the longest employees in the county. So I'm guessing you know quite a bit about the fairgrounds. So, I just want to say, I would like to somehow get all of the employees, whether they're working directly for the county or for boards, but if we're funding it, I would like to see them in that market range. I just want everybody to know that.
I appreciate that very much, and on that page that's in front of you at the bottom, it's got the recommended wage increases to bring us into the lower end of the industry standard. I can tell you that a lot of the people there, if you have to replace them, the wages that are being paid right now, I couldn't replace them for.
How many total employees do you have at the fairgrounds?
There's 9 of us full-time right now,
Do you have part-time people?
just during the summer.
What do you do, hire college kids and stuff?
High school, and right now, we're lucky if we can get them even over 16.
What do you pay them per?
We're paying them 13 an hour. We've got a lot of kids that return summer after summer through their high school and starting into college. We've even got some kids that work for us now that's fathers worked for us 30, I shouldn't say that, worked for me 30 years ago, and now their kids work for me. And it does.
So what do they, just typically, what kind of jobs do they, I'm just curious, what kind of jobs do they do?
It's total labor. They're shoveling manure, they're shoveling dirt, they're cutting weeds, they're mowing lawns, they're painting, picking up garbage, cleaning bathrooms, cleaning buildings, setting up for events. It's just hard grunt work, but one of the parents told me that the reason they bring their kids out there is because they learned to work at the fairgrounds. They want their kids to learn to work.
Exactly.
So
I was just saying what I heard you say is the kind of work I did, and I didn't have any choice. That was the job.
yeah,
But now I know kids who,
there's a lot that don't want to do that.
they don't want to do that,
No.
and they're missing the boat. It's too bad, too.
We have a really, really tight, good staff. They all take care of each other, and they've been together a long time.
So is it your electrical bill that's
Electric,
gotten
and
out of hand?
gas, and water, yeah. And, of course, fuel,
Diesel?
diesel and gas, yeah. And we're running 2 loaders daily, right, especially right now, trying to move water out of the stalls for all the college kids coming in. And the barn that did go down is rebuilt. We're finishing wiring it today. We've got all the water into it. Of course, all the heavy equipment that was in there, they tore up some of that ground around there. It looks kind of like a swamp. I was in there with a blade last week trying to straighten it out, and some of it we got, some of it made it worse. So we're in there with loaders now trying to move some of it around and make sure the water's all out of there. We pumped water all day yesterday, and we're pumping it again this morning into our irrigation ditches, so hoping to have it ready. That's all I can tell you. If it quits raining, we'll have it. If it doesn't, we won't.
Is there any solution to that flooding down there?
It's from the front gate to the back gate is exactly 3/4 of an inch difference. It's just flat, but we've got drainage ditches cut all through those barns and a catch pond in the back, which we pump out of into our irrigation ditches. So again, if everything's working right, we can get it all pumped out of there. But
Does
right now,
much of it come from the river, or is it mostly rain?
it's mostly rain. We do get some sub-feed off the river. Right now, our water level's at about 6 feet below the surface on the ground back in the barns.
Is there a fix to it? Because I've inquired in this before, and everybody gives me a bewildered look.
No, there isn't. I mean, again, all we can do is just keep draining it and pumping it into our irrigation ditches. When we did have, it used to drain off into Garden Creek, and then the EPA shut all that down because of the contaminants coming out of the barn areas, so we can't even do that anymore. It has to go into our irrigation ditches. They made us build berms along the back of the 13th Street fence to keep any water from going out into the 13th Street or going towards Garden Creek, so we have to keep it inside the fairgrounds and keep it in those irrigation ditches and feed it back to the trees.
Thank you. That's an explanation I hadn't heard. I should have come to you first.
Well, I appreciate it, though. Thank you.
I know some neighbors, though, aren't happy with the rainwater either.
It'll be in about a month when it heats up good and the flies start. We'll be spraying those daily. That's when you're going to hear more about the flies.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Peter.
Tom, so it sounds like, or it looks like from your materials, you have one open full-time position?
Yes. We need that person bad.
Have you been working with Danielle in HR on the wage study and the proposed increase that we see?
No, we tried to do that last year and we were excluded from it. So we went out and did our own wage study through the Rocky Mountain Association of Fairs. So this is just the Rocky Mountain Association. I think there's 7 northern states in that. So this isn't nationwide, it's just this region and includes all of Wyoming.
Okay. I know I'll be asking Danielle her thoughts on some of the wage increases in various departments, so I'll probably bring that up with her and maybe would you and your people be willing to visit with her if she had some questions or just want to kind of get more background on what the Rocky Mountain Association of Fairs,
Sure.
How they approach this?
We'd be willing to visit with her if she's willing to visit with us.
I wanted to go over some of the capital
Okay?
stuff, and Madam Clerk, maybe you can make sure we're up to date on these, because I know the sheet that we have from you says that it's through May 10th. As I look at the 1 cent cash reserve projects for this fiscal year, ending in June 30th, I see 615,000. I see expenditures of basically half of that. Is that still current as of today's date?
You will be getting the bill on the asphalt tomorrow.
Okay, well, that sounds like we'll still be meeting with our deadline, so that's good. Go over with me, so are you still going to do these other items, just didn't get it done this fiscal year?
With that barn going down, we've reallocated and restructured some of it, so all of those projects for last year won't be done. We've had to reallocate some of that money.
Okay, and we'll talk about the 1 cent request, the capital request for this year, but maybe just give me, and maybe the other commissioners, just a little background on the status of the asphalt work.
Sure. We've divided it into phases. We've got 2 of those phases done, and we've been lucky enough to extend some of the asphalt and get a little more done than we had planned on. So we've got 2 more phases of it left, and we're just about out of the hardest parts of it where we have all the manholes and electrical covers and everything. We're just about to where we can do straight shots, which will make it cheaper. We've got one last stretch from in front of the grandstand clear down to the Wyoming Boulevard gate, which you'll have 4 drains and 3 manholes on, which will cost more than regular asphalting. And then 2 main parts in the main parking lot, one's smaller and one's larger, but they're a little easier to do, so there's only 2 drains in those. So we've got, again, 2 phases left, so if we can get one more approval on those, we'll get one more big chunk of that. We'll continue the main roadway if possible. If this is approved, we'll start this fall and do the main roadway out, which that's where your hardest use is at, and then we'll start in on the parking lots where your lighter use is at.
So is the amount requested for this year for asphalt, is that going to cover both of these remaining phases or just one of them?
Just one of them. There's approximately $650,000 worth of phases left to do. And that's provided the price of oil doesn't go way up too.
The 650 would be for both of the phases?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Tom, you were allocated $500,000 for asphalt for 1 cent in fiscal '25 and $300,000 in fiscal '26 for 1 cent 17.
Okay.
And then, so your current request is an additional $300,000. So is that, you're needing all of those funds to complete this project?
Close to, yes.
So close to 900,
Yes.
a million. Okay, thank you.
And the bleacher seats, I see this on the last one, which was a carryover. Last year, our bleacher seats got stuck in Houston at Customs and didn't make it in before the fair, so we had to go rent seats from the event center and haul them down and set them up. Our seats came in, of course, the week after fair was over. They are all in. They look good. They won't fall apart if you sit on them.
Mr. Chairman,
Those.
how many people can you seat at a rodeo?
Our capacity right now is 6,200.
And are all those new seats?
1,088 of them are the new seats, the box seats. The others are still in good shape. Our chute seats, we've got 1,000 bleacher seats that are in pretty good shape. Our chute seats, which we've got 208 of them, they're in position where they're going to start to need to be replaced.
Is the Ellen Wolf project, do you have, like, are you budgeted for that and able to take care of that? Is that in here?
No, it's not.
So when is that, that's going to be done this summer, isn't it?
Yes,
So you're planning on putting it in front of the industrial building?
yes,
Have you estimated what that whole thing may cost?
yes, and I presented that to Jim.
So we got the quote, I brought it in, gave it to Tracy, and she's going to find a place to put it in where it works.
Do you know how much was it?
21.5.
$21,500.
Thank you.
Anybody else got questions?
I've got a couple real quick. Looks like, okay, so we got the 1 cent. The 1 cent, with the overlay project where it was scheduled for 25 and 26, 500,000 and then 300,000. Are you requesting this year more funds as well above and beyond that for the overlay?
This 300,000 that we're requesting this year would be in addition, yes.
So if you're doing it in 2 phases, do you need the 3 chunks?
Yes. This chunk would, again, do the roadways and finish out the roadways, which are the most fragile parts. The other, which would be next year and the year after, are main parking lot, and they're not, I mean, do they need done? Yes, but they don't get as heavy a traffic.
So there was that question. The other one, the equipment that didn't quite get fully purchased. What are we after this year for equipment?
Right now, we're asking to replace some old gators and hopefully a water truck.
Okay.
We missed a shot on a water truck at an auction that had 13,000 miles on it and sold for $11,000. It was in good shape, but we missed it. So we've been watching the auctions on them.
Can you give the rest of the board explanation on the digital sign, why that's in there, why
On the what?
the digital signage?
The digital sign, we replaced the digital sign at the front gate. Anything 10 years old and older, they don't make parts for anymore. And when the digital readers go out, all you get is dots across that thing. And our one at our front, CY Avenue is starting to pixel on us, and sometimes you get a message, sometimes you don't. And that's the last one that we need to replace. And you can't get parts for it.
And then the big one is, other one would be the grandstand.
This is a remodel for all 4 bathrooms, both ends of the bathrooms. When they built that grandstand, I'm not a big fan of the cheapest bids, but they put all the plumbing, we can't get to some of it. The sewer lines are right behind the plumbing flush valves, so we have to go in from the front. You pretty much got to knock a hole in the wall to get to the flush valve to even replace the damn thing, and those are 50 years old.
And
That
do you
and-
have any, I know there's a project, can you explain the potential project that's from the third party that we're counting, where the fair board would be, leasing out some space for a tower?
We're working with Verizon right now to put a tower in next to the North Barns near 13th Street. They have offered $10,000 a year to put that tower in. Right now, we're working with them, make sure everything's going to be all right with it. And it looks like we're getting closer to an agreement with them. That 10,000 would escalate 5% per year for the next 5 years, and then you sign a new contract. The tower, they would replace one of our light poles in the barns, put all of our power and stuff back on it, and put our light poles back up, or put our lights back on their pole, and everything would be at their maintenance. Doesn't lock off any ground or anything, so we're not losing anything.
Mr. Chairman, is there a upfront payment on that?
They would upfront it at $1,800 just to hold the lease until it's built.
So, is that technically in the city limits where that would go?
No, it's technically county ground.
Because I know there's a lot of regulations on who you put those cell phone towers.
Yeah, and they put the same thing down at Cheyenne Frontier Days and helped with a lot of we've got security systems on everything we've got now because of the break-ins. And this helps with because everything feeds through a phone. When the tower gets in there, it ups your signal, so you're a constant 4 bars on everything. And even with our voting, like sometimes you vote with stuff on the rodeo and they vote through their phones, it would up that too. I mean, not that that's really important, but the signals would double.
So, when you go see Danielle, Gary's going with you, isn't he?
It-
And because the board, this is a little different with the board running and everything, and then how we do this politically, but I would recommend that you have a board member yourself,
Okay,
just so everybody's fully informed.
okay.
Hey, Tom, I didn't see any significant revenue changes, other revenue sources that you're anticipating this year. Is that pretty flat too?
No, our revenue did increase. I think it was,
68 from sponsorship.
yeah, we signed a deal with TV this year. And with Great Western Cowboy Channel, they're going to pay us $35,000 to broadcast our rodeo.
Other than that, I see that on your cover sheet, on your cover letter, 68,000.
Yeah, and we've increased from $895 to $924 in income that will generate.
Mr. Chairman? Tom, on the current $300,000 that you were granted this current fiscal, you said there's an invoice coming, correct?
Yeah, I'll bring it.
Do you know the amount of that?
Yeah, it's $304,000.
Thank you.
And some of that will be attributed back to the seats, I hope. So we were able to come in under that. We did some of the labor ourselves.
Tom, if you had to prioritize, it looks like I see $250,000 for buildings and structures, and then the $300 for the asphalt. Which of those is more critical to the fair, in your opinion?
Boo. Give up asphalt to remodel bathrooms.
Mr. Chairman, those questions, we asked yesterday, and I asked one of those questions. Nobody liked that question. I can see why. We were putting the heat on them as to what they'd choose. And I think you brought that up, Mr. Nicolason. So I just want to be fair to all of our people on that particular question.
The grandstand bathrooms, they still have floor urinals on them. And the concrete around them starting to get rotten. So probably, if I was going to prioritize, I'd limp the asphalt through one more year, and I'd remodel those bathrooms. They're disgusting. I was going to put it plain. The public's, you're running 140,000 people a year through the fair, and that's just the fair on those bathrooms. We have the Indian relay races, we have demolition derbies, we're putting another 50,000 people through those. So you're looking at 200,000 people into bathrooms that really, really need upgraded.
The 250,000 for those bathrooms, do you have a bid or a quote or an estimate, or is that a ballpark?
That's a ballpark. And thanks for that question. Thanks. I don't know how well I did answer it.
Would you be doing any of that? Would you be doing any of that work? Any of your people do that work? You have to hire all that out?
We can probably demo some of it, but we would have to contract it. Most all of the plumbing and everything will have to be coated, so most all that'll have to be.
I know you'll make all the women happy if you get that done. And that's a very important issue.
We can only paint over the scribblings in the side stalls so many times. Now, it beats the heck out of the shower house we just replaced up where the old arena was. Those bathrooms were back to back, and if you flushed on one side, it came up on the other side, so. These are better than that, I can tell you that.
When I looked at the asphalt, I wasn't sure, is that front lot ever going to be paved, or is that included in what you're talking about?
No, with so much stock that we put on that, even especially during CNFR, the urine off of livestock just eats through asphalt and crumbles it up, so no.
Is that the same with concrete?
Yes. Yep.
I learn something new every day.
Peter, did I answer your question all right?
You did, thank you, Tom.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you,
All right,
guys,
thank you.
very much. We appreciate it. Appreciate all you do for us.
Thank you.
Shot of water truck, I'll sell you.
You do?
It's probably not quite as nice as the one you were looking at, but I'll get you some pictures.
Okay, serious. And it works? Sorry, I'm.
As is, where is.
As is.
Where is kind of makes me nervous.
We'll get it. We'll get it to you.
Okay, Peter, this is county money that's buying this, just so you know.
Oh, you take that down?
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Somebody did, huh? Oh, I was taped down yesterday.
Appreciate it very much.
Hey, see you later. Have a good one.
Thanks, Tom.
See you later.
See you later.
Hey, Greg, nice to see you. Yeah.
It's just been an age.
Congratulations. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good for you.
What's this guy's name? What's this guy's name here? On the privilege?
Take care.
Oh, yeah.
We tried.
I shook their hands all earlier.
Hi, Kelly.
Good morning. you.
So good at it.
Just need donuts next time.
I don't know what I'd do with that yet.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Kelly Wessels. I'm the Executive Director for Community Action Partnership and Healthcare for the Homeless. And this morning, at least I come to you a little differently than I did last year. I was only on the job for less than 2 months last year and looking for a place to be because we were about to be homeless. And so it's been a year. I come to you now. We were able to relocate in the last year. We were able to have some very good successes within the organization, which was having some significant change at the time. We are diversifying funding, which is important, especially as you can tell from our request that our funding going forward into '24 is significantly lower due to the reduction of COVID funds and elimination. But on the plus side, our service spectrum has gotten wider. We received notification recently that we had some funds restored with the city, so we can redirect those funds that were going very Casper-centric and get them out into the wider areas and the outerlying areas, which is important to us. We are working on several collaborative partnerships as well. And in front of you is actually our strategic plan, which there had not been one in place for the organization. So I wanted to share it with you to give you a sense of the direction that we're going. This is very broad, 1,000-foot aerial view, but at the same time, I think it's very important. We established 4 goals, and those I'm going to speak to very, very quickly. We are looking at becoming a respected organizational leader again that is the premier source of addressing conditions for poverty. That's our job. That is what our core funding of CSBG is for, and we need to get back to that. We are also looking at how we can be more unified as an organization. When I came into the organization, it was bifurcated in many ways and siloed. It also did not have a good community presence. And you can't do this work alone in a silo. It doesn't happen that way. So we need to really work on our strategies and getting focused on our partnerships. We want to be seen as a respected community stakeholder that is responsible for fostering collaboration and not looking at everything as just being about us, but how do we add value to our community partners. And I give a good example of how we've tested that this last year. As you all know, healthcare recruitment positions are very hard. And so the health department and healthcare for the homeless were both having difficulties in staffing positions. And we decided to split a nurse practitioner between us in order to get our needs fulfilled. And it's that creativity that we have to do in order to get the services delivered. As a result, we've had some good success in the clinic this year, and we are now the 3rd identified. We just received our certification for patient-centered medical home. That certification is a national certification, and we are the 3rd clinic in the state of Wyoming to receive it. So we have been working very hard at establishing ourselves and getting back to business. The last goal I find very important, and that is that we have a diversified funding base and that we can demonstrate fiscal stabilization operationally. One of the things that when I came into the organization, there were several years of audits that seemed to be they weren't critical, but they were definitely not good, in my opinion. And so last year, I worked very hard with the auditors, and we had a very clean audit, which I'm very proud of. And we have now made we are making a full conversion to a different fiscal software system so that our stewardship, it has the integrity that it needs in order to be competitive. We have to be able to show that we're good stewards, not just say it. And so those are the 4 things that I'll be working on over the next 3 to 5 years. I think they are, they're definitely stretch goals, but doable, in my opinion. And so with that, we have asked for stable funding. We have not asked for anything further, and we understand that things are tight for everybody. If you look at our request, it pretty much mirrors last year's with a minor adjustment, I believe. And that really has to do with the fact that we are looking at making sure that some of the funding that we receive, particularly the human services, the request for general is across operational. We need match funds. Because the organization, when I entered in, was so heavily federally funded based, you do have to have a certain amount of local engagement funding that causes match. And as I have gone out for other funding sources, the trust funding source, the city, 1%. And now I also have a proposal in to SAMHSA for a sizable 5-year grant as well. I'm doing that to build some capacity, some width to the organization, because it just was really static. And without the match funds, we can't leverage anything. And if you can't leverage, you're kind of stuck. And that's not the intent of the organization. The intent of the organization, I've been doing this work for 27 years. The intent of the organization and community action agencies is to be responsive, to be engaged, and to be reflecting the needs of the community. And as we enter into this new phase post-COVID and the devolution of those funds, it's going to be a new landscape. And there are people in rural areas that recover slower economically than in urban areas. And so with even the dissipation of ERAP, my office has been slammed the last 60 days with what am I going to do? Because their economic platform has not recovered. There's still caregivers out there. We are strategically looking at getting into some outreach and direct services in the outerlying areas. We have a partnership with the health department to do a stand-up in Mills, and which is really an important community, because when you look at the demographics there, you're starting to see an aging community that is not able to get to services. It's a food and health desert. And so there are lots of things that we can be doing that can help the aging community and those that are caregivers, because the high proportion of caregivers in that particular community is also significant. So I am open to any questions that you have.
Any questions?
Thank you.
I do have one. Yeah, I know, it's always horrible when you sit there and go through everything and then nobody asks any questions.
Sure, ask me something.
How much do you work with the Natrona County Health Department?
We actually are working with them very closely. We share a provider. We have an MOU that we established that allowed us to have, we split an FTE so that happens. And also we've been strategizing on what are the services that the health department does, for example, at the Mission. We both do outreach there, healthcare outreach there. But we want to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts, because nobody has that capacity right now. So we strategize on how to do that. We strategize on our outreach events. We also have client referrals that we do that with. And we're working with other organizations the same way. One of the things is that people need you when they need you, not at your convenience. So how can you shorten the timeline between providers so that people get served faster and more efficiently? Because then their crisis doesn't escalate, right? So we've been taking advantage of technology and finding ways to shorten those referrals just simply by setting up electronic portals of referral. That way, in real time, it's as if we're working in the same office together. So those are some examples of how we work with them.
Well, I appreciate you reaching out to them and working with them, because today, in today's world, with funds being restricted so
Yes.
much, and it's always good not to be duplicating efforts and
Absolutely.
making things a lot easier, and I do appreciate you working with them on that. And that,
I think it's really important. I think that we have, in this community, we have some great potential for partnerships. One of the things that I look at is who else is doing it in the community, and are they doing it better than I am, and how can I help them, rather than me try to do it. One of the areas that I think that that's really important is emergency services. We have entities in our community, Salvation Army, Interfaith, some other community partners, that do those crisis pays. Well, crisis payment has its role, obviously. You know, sometimes people just need that one help and they're going to be okay. But is that the best use of our funds when we could be wrapping around people with other, no one household has just one problem. So can we wrap around with other partners and do more co-case management and invest a little bit more so their success is a little bit more and their stabilization, because the goal is them to not need us. And that's not crisis pay work. So can we help the other individuals do that work better and us get out of that game? And I think that that's part of self-reflection of what you do best and helping somebody else do it better.
yeah. Have you requested funding from the hospital foundation?
From the trust?
Yes.
Yes, and was awarded.
Okay.
We were awarded this year. We are using that actually to convert to a different service delivery platform. While our primary funder, Community Service Block Grant through the state of Wyoming, indicated that they wanted us to change how we delivered services, move away from the crisis pay work and get more into intentional family stabilization. So we started doing that. But in order to make that leap, because the organization was so flipped, we reached out to the trust and said, this is a holistic health issue, because housing is health. You don't have stable housing, you don't have a habitable housing, you're going to have health issues. So we need your investment in helping us make this shift, and they did.
Okay.
So my question is there anything on here that you've requested that you don't really need right now? Now, I'm going to tell you why I asked that, because some commissioners always ask, is there something on here that you would rather have than other things? And so I'm just trying to get ahead of the game. I did that yesterday, but I didn't get an answer from a person.
Right.
So I want to get answers from everybody.
So I'm going to tell you from my vantage point, what we've asked for is below what we need, but we understand that you have limited capacity. My job is to secure what we need, and what we need, I will have to go to multiple sources. So I cannot identify anything on here that we don't need, but if you saw fit to reduce, I would have to live with that now, wouldn't I? Just kind of.
Mr. Chairman, Kelly, thank you. I think that your request is eminently reasonable. I appreciate it, and I think that, it's been a minute since I went to one of your meetings, and I haven't been to one this year. I'm no longer your liaison, but I know you guys continue to do good work, and you continue to impact people who really need the most help in our community. So thank you for that. And, I think this commission does support you. And one of the things that was kind of floating around at the end of the year was whether you guys need to do some sort of revision to your governing documents, your bylaws.
Yes.
And I don't know if that, if that's been resolved, if you need to make progress on that, if you're waiting for county legal for that, or, but one thought might be if you need some additional funding, actually, from what you're asking for, to hire consultant or counsel to, get to the finish line on some of this.
I will say, so in response to that, when you separated, we were having that discussion, and as Dallas recalls, because he is my liaison, we had a really eventful meeting a few months later in March. And we had a conversation around what that would entail. And legislatively, Gary and some of the board decided that they would like to look at going after the statute, actually, and amending it. And interestingly enough, there's another public cap that would benefit from that as well. So the board of directors voted, since we have waiver right now, that they would take the time to do the research, and Gary is, as you know, very interested in doing that. So that's where we're sitting right now. I can tell you that the other public cap, which is Converse County, they have actually reached out to us because our performance as a public cap has been good and the state recommended us. They would like us to help them over the next 2 years, getting their cap agency back up and running. The whole idea is to give them some support and infrastructure. Their commissioners have reached out and to our board of directors to have a conversation. And Gary, actually, I'm going to set up a meeting between Dallas, Gary, and I to have a conversation about that.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's really nice. They're very nice commissioners, and they really care about their community, just like you do. And so if we can provide them some support in exchange for some funding and help them monitor their funding a little bit better while they get their infrastructure up, they are also interested in helping with the legislative piece. So we have a little bit of, kind of quid pro quo.
Good. Thanks for that update. Do you have any open positions right now?
I do.
Tell us about those.
Nurse practitioners are very hard to get. I am still down a 0.5 FTE. We are really struggling with that because it doesn't allow us to see as many patients as we need to see for our funding source. I have my fiscal administrator is now retiring. She hadn't anticipated retiring this early, but her house sold in 24 hours, and she's going to be gone very shortly. She's been with the organization almost 9 years. So I'm trying to find a fiscal administrator is going to be very tough right now. I have reached out to a couple of different entities, as well as some similar nonprofits that do same kind of funding work that we do. I have to emphasize the kind of work that we do requires very strong knowledge of uniform guidance because of the different funding sources that we receive. And the HRSA grant alone, which is almost $1 million, is something that you cannot make errors with. So that position is open, and potentially we have one position loss in our office. We are trying to redirect into different services. Not sure how that's going to work right now, but with ERAP ending, we have a ERAP coordinator who's been extraordinarily successful in getting services out the door. However, that funding source is ending at the end of the month. Right now, that individual has a great deal of background in senior and disabled services, so we're trying to see in our service platform how we can move that around a little bit.
Do you have to pay utilities under your rental agreement, your lease agreement?
It's built into the lease.
And have you looked at working through an adjustment to your wages to fill some of those open positions and to retain some of your valuable employees?
I did. I did a salary survey when I came on board last June, and between June and January, I had to adjust salaries upward. They were significantly low. Some people hadn't had a raise in 8 years. They were dramatically low even at that rate. And because we have a HRSA grant that requires us to have pay equity, I had to do that salary survey. Some of the positions were 20, I think the highest one was 21% out of range, out of the lowest part of the range. And so we didn't do any raises higher than 16%. Those were for key positions. It allowed us to have pay equity across the agency now, and that made our wages more competitive. It allowed us to hire, we're changing our pharmacy. We have a 340B pharmacy at the clinic, and because the University of Wyoming no longer can do the kind of support for us in our pharmacy with residents, this statute requires that the residents have to have a full-time pharmacist with them at all times. So we were always using residents because it was a cheaper model, I guess. Went back through it and decided we just need to hire a pharmacist. And so had to go back and calibrate those wages. But actually, we have a cost savings now because I'm not paying the University of Wyoming for consulting in addition to my paid residency. We can come out with a really good quality pharmacist and at the same time increase some billables. So with a full-time pharmacist, I can have somebody who can do education, health education, diabetes education, which is really important. Oftentimes people don't realize that homelessness, when they are being treated with behavioral health medications, oftentimes a side effect of behavioral health medications is diabetes. And so when you're on the street with diabetes, that's pretty serious because mismanagement of that causes other concerns. So, and other chronic health problems. So it kind of becomes a vicious cycle. So having a pharmacist who can do diabetes education and health management, as well as immunizations and things of that nature, create a billable resource that helps compensate for that position.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nicolason, for your kind comments here.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. So the issue you spoke of with Gary, do you think that the legislature is going to change that statute? The statute we're talking about limits board members to 9, and they want to have how many?
Essentially what it is that we would like it to be similar to what the funding source allows for. And the only reason that we're held to this is because we're
How many is that?
a public cap, 9 is what we're held
No, but
to.
how many do you want?
Ideally, we would like 12.
Okay.
But because we're a public cap, the cap that is in a similar situation to us, but is a private nonprofit cap, is in Cheyenne, and they are allowed to have 12 members. We can't because we're held under the state statute for tripartite. Tripartite boards in this, and I did do the research at the federal level because the state of Wyoming is the only state that's like this, where a public cap is, tripartites are supposed to be for the community service block grant, 1/3 public, 1/3 private, and 1/3 low income or more. Wyoming state statute under tripartite limits that third quadrant to not being fully represented to the federal integrity of the funding source. So that's where the conflict comes in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner
Mr.
Mill?
Chairman. So you talked, while you're giving your, going over everything, you said the city, I take it that's Casper?
Yeah. City of Casper, we applied for the 1% funds, and we received an allocation. We haven't received it yet, but we're in the preliminary stages. They haven't done their contracting yet, but we were approved. We asked for those funds based on the fact that the City of Casper takes a great deal of effort and funding, but we were using our CSBG to support it. And that CSBG is supposed to be for the whole county. So by taking that 1% in from the City of Casper, it allows us to use the rest of that CSBG in a wider way.
Did you approach the city of Mills as well?
Not yet, but we are working on that partnership. That's part of the alignment between the Health Department and Community Action as far as setting up and staging operations in the office space that's there. We did a survey, and some of the services that we can provide there in-house, I think are going to be very successful, including one of the areas that we're getting into is some financial literacy classes, tenant education classes, and things of that nature, so that people are not just receiving financial support from us, because sometimes that's not what we can do. I mean, it's just too much, but we can provide that education so they can do it for themselves.
So you are going to approach them for financial as well?
We're going to, when the opportunity presents itself, we're in the very incremental stages of that.
Okay, thank you.
What's the average age of your clientele?
Interesting. Actually, I could probably tell you that.
I think it's just important for the commissioners to know that, and the public, actually.
So the average age of those coming in are right in the early 40s to mid 50s, actually, right now. Which is interesting in the sense that a lot of people don't realize, they think of it as either the younger demographics or families, but trending-wise, we are seeing far more older adults that are without housing or stable housing, that are getting priced out of being able to be where they're at because they're on fixed incomes. And that also is impacted by their health, because a lot of them are ineligible for certain health benefits. And anyone who's on Medicare would understand that. It doesn't pay for everything.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, Kelly, in the 117 request, you were granted $23,700 for facility privacy station construction. Are you still going to need that in your current new location?
We do. We actually do, because it had been delayed because we were having difficulty getting bids, and the owner of the building is out of the area for a good portion of the year. So
Perfect, thank you.
hopefully this summer it'll be finished.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your support. I really appreciate it and your engagement.
Thank you. Lisa?
Hi, how are y'all?
Good.
Hello, Mr. Commissioner Chair, Commissioners, how are you today?
Good.
So I'm here to chat with you about my budget request. I feel like I tried to put together a narrative of the request that would be self-explanatory, but knowing that there are always questions, I have some information here to share with you, maybe to fill in what I could perceive as being questions. So, of course, you asked us to ask for a status quo, and that's my starting point here. I did put in the status quo for fiscal year '23, our current year. And then to that, I added 3 things. We are in need of a .5 FTE, so that would be 1 part-time staff person in our Adult Services Department. And I'll chat with you about what they do and why we have the need in just a moment. And then I also included to address pay compression that happened during this fiscal year when minimum salaries were raised for frontline staff. And then I included some funding for some security. So just to jump in, going in the order that I have it here on the letter that I sent you, staff is the first item that I addressed. So more and more as our adult services staff addresses needs that help out everything from community businesses and entrepreneurs to programming for adults in our community, we find ourselves in desperate need of another staff member there. Ideally, it would be great to have a full-time staff member, but realistically, I know that we can, for a while, get by with a part-time staff member, which is why I chose to ask for a .5 FTE. So I put in here some of the things that this person does. That department hosts one-on-one sessions with community members that have needs for assistance on their personal devices or accessing resources, databases, and information. They also are a big part of curating and providing relevant resources and programming. We work alongside our business community by providing them opportunities for training, everything from providing OSHA materials to access to good business practices. We also have in our Adult Services Department a studio where people can go, entrepreneurs can go and create their own marketing videos that helps our young businesses grow, become established, and then grow and thrive in our community, which just helps everybody. So they do that in our studio where they can record their own promotional videos and then put it out in a very inexpensive way via social media, creating a marketing plan that is affordable for new businesses and small entrepreneurs. We also have in that same space, we have a podcasting studio, and all of this equipment, as you can imagine, is not something that the average person can just walk in off the street and walk in and know what to do. Instead, what they do is they go to staff and say, hey, I need some help. And so we have highly trained and qualified staff available to do that. And so in that department, I'm looking for another .5 FTE. I've given you the weighted expense here would be $33,254 for that, actually. It looks like I maybe have a typo there because up here in the numbers, it's 31,317. So that's the number we should follow. My apologies. I just saw that. How long have I been looking at this and I just saw that? I don't know if it's easier to address this kind of one thing at a time. If you have any questions about the need for a .5 FTE for adult services, this may be a good time to engage in that discussion.
I think we're good.
Awesome. And so the next thing is pay compression. I think that I'm just going to venture a guess to say this is not the first department head that's come up maybe and addressed that. But maybe I am, I'm not sure, but.
You're not.
I'm not, okay. So I'm not going to go through what caused it. I think we all know what caused that. So we did have a pay compression. It didn't affect everybody. It's not an across-the-board thing. There are 8 key positions that with raising the salaries of some of the frontline staff, it caused a compression that needs to be addressed, not only because the duties are remarkably different and the requirements and skill sets are different, but also because of the longevity of service. And so I did provide that figure there. I can break it down for you if you would like. We have 2 people in adult services department. Adult Services Department requires a bachelor's degree, and in one of the cases, we have somebody with a bachelor's working on a master's that also brings with them 10 years of experience in the library business. And so I'm asking to address the pay compression for those areas. Then we also have 3 positions in our technical services department. Now, technical services is where, when we get items into a library, they're put into our system so that other people can find them and retrieve them. And by that, I mean, we have an online platform and a database that is shared statewide, and every library across the state is required to have professionally trained and skilled people to add to this database. A shared system is only as strong as its weakest link, and if we are putting in information that's inaccurate, it affects the entire state system. And so our tech services department does things like adding materials to our database, which is quite a challenging task, I will tell you. It is not just simply pulling something over and hitting add. There's a lot of professional skills required for that. They also help us with interlibrary loan, which is where we borrow materials from other libraries in Wyoming and across all libraries. We do Wyoming as our first stop, and then nationally, and then we also retrieve items internationally for people. Again, that is a very specific and unique skill set to have, but it allows us to better serve our constituents and our residents here in Natrona County. And then, our technical services also, our new technical services department manager also helps us with technology in the library and troubleshooting a lot of the technology we provide, not only to patrons, but for staff as well. So we have 3 positions there that experienced a pay compression as frontline staff salaries were increased, and I am requesting those to be addressed. Then we have 2 of our youth services department staff members. I'm going to back up just a little bit. Technical services department does not, let me see. Technical services department requires a high school diploma, and we prefer previous experience. We are fortunate that some of our tech services departments come to us. We have one that has we have a couple that have master's degrees. We have somebody who had previous experience at other libraries and at another state library. So we have really highly skilled technical services department staff members. And in youth services, similar to adult services, these are individuals that are required to be degreed. They are trained. We have individuals with master's degrees. We have certified educators. They not only provide programming for our children, which is birth all the way up through the kiddos in the teen department, but they assist parents. They work on kindergarten readiness, school preparedness, and we stand as support for our public and private education systems here in Natrona County by providing resources and a skilled and trained assistant. And then we have a lead maintenance who has 33 years experience and had a pay compression with some of our newest staff members in our front line. So that is what I'm looking at. I gave you the dollar figure there of $42,444 would allow us to address that pay compression for those key positions. So before I move on to the next, do y'all have any questions about pay compression? Y'all kind of tired of hearing about pay compression?
We've heard about quite a few.
It is a thing. It is a thing. That being said, while I know that you're being asked to adjust pay compression, I think it would, I would be remiss to not say how much, as a department manager, I do appreciate that y'all addressed the minimum salary to begin with. That was something that was a long time in coming and much needed. So I do thank you for that. I know sometimes when you fix one thing, it causes another, and that's the situation we're looking at here. And while I'm asking for you to address pay compression with respect, I do want to say how much I appreciate that you took the first step, which was an essential step and a very needed step, and much appreciated by my staff. So thank you for that. So on to security. Can I tell you a little story? Last week, I met a lady in our parking lot. Kind of a long story. I'm going to cut it as short as I can. I am not really a good elevator speech person. But I met a lady in our parking lot because she was going to the book drop. The UPS guy was, UPS delivery person was in the way. And I noticed that she had young kids in her car and was waiting and not wanting to get out. So I pointed to my name badge and said, I'm with the library, as I walked up to her car because I was heading to lunch. I said, would you like for me to take those books to the book drop for you? because I see that you've got those kiddos. So in the course of discussing with her why, what we were doing and, why I was helping her, and she was so appreciative, she told me, so about a week ago when I was in the library, there was this guy that as I left the library, he was following me out to my car. But I didn't really realize he was following me. I thought we were just both leaving at the same time. And I'm putting my kids in their car seats in the back seat. And at this point, she's on the driver's side, putting the one right behind her seat. And she said, as I went to go close my door, he tried to get in with my kids. And she said, I shoved him out of the way, closed the door, and then she was rattled. I didn't ask her a lot of details. She did call. She reported it to staff who encouraged her to call 911. I tell you that story to say, first of all, my heart was broken. And I told her, I am so sorry, because one of the things that I fight to work hard on every day is to provide a safe place for people in our community, that people drive into our parking lot and know that I can get out of my car, walk through the parking lot, get to the library, and safely access these materials that I really want to access. Maybe they want to come to the Creation Station, get a book, get a movie, just go to a story time, I don't know. But getting in is a problem. And this is a conversation I've had with the city of Casper. I had this with them when I approached them for city 1 cent funding. And part of my request for them was specifically for security for our parking lot. We currently have contracted security, and I thank you for that. That is something that's a part of my annual budget. But I find more and more that we have issues happening outside of the facility. So we have one person. We have 4 floors in the library. We have 1 security guard. So when the security guard, and we do ask them to mix it up, don't be on a set schedule where everybody who's watching knows that at such and such o'clock they're on the 2nd floor. We ask them to mix it up. So, but when they're inside, they're not outside. And when they're outside, we do have other people inside watching. But we've got to be able to provide the residents and visitors of the city of Casper who are coming to the public library assurance that they have safe access to that building. Now, I have anecdotal thoughts on why there's issues. I don't think that really matters. There are issues, and they need to be addressed. So when we have security and they're making their rounds outside the building, so they've done their floors, they go outside, they do the entire perimeter of the library, so they go down 2nd Street, they go down Durbin. Then when they're in our parking lot, I encourage them, swing wide, swing way out to the edge, go out towards the parking strip that is owned by Market Square, go way out towards the side of the parking where the staff parks, that's over close to the bus transfer station. Make sure that you're seen. It's not a brisk walk. It's a slow walk, head up, eyes alert, all the time walk. Let people see you, because when people see you, wrongdoers all of a sudden get a little smarter. They don't want to be caught. So when the security is outside, we find that we are having less issues. So my request for security is, I really need a double security. I need to have somebody outside all the time. They need to be outside making sure that those people who are crossing our parking lot, getting from one side of town to the other, perhaps are looking for services across town, that they aren't stopping and doing harm to somebody in the parking lot. We need to make sure that the mom with 3 kids in a car seat, all probably, just guessing, I'm going to say 3rd grade and below, and she's a homeschool mom, and needs those resources from the library. We have got to make sure that nobody's trying to get in the car with her. That wouldn't have happened if security was outside. But he was inside, and he was doing his job in the building at the time. So about a year ago, knowing that we have issues with security, we have always tracked them for a long, always is the wrong word. For a long time, we've tracked them using a shared Word document, and staff members come in and they look at it, and we felt like we could do better. So we purchased a subscription to an incident tracker. It is online, it is secure, because as a public library, we have to make sure that we are providing, that's a legislative thing, that we have to provide security, keep all of our records confidential. And so we have the ability to do that. In this tracking system, we can set it up and customize it specific to our library. So we have things like an issue, a location issue might be first floor men's restroom, or first floor Barbara Bush room, which is one of our meeting rooms on the first floor, way over in the corner. We can drill down exactly where something happens. And so we added, when we started this, I think we had it going for a couple of months, and then Kate Much, my assistant director, and I were talking about outside. What's happening outside? So we have parking lot, and we put even non-library property, transfer station, and parking strips near us, so we can track incidences that are happening that we're aware of and how that spills over to the library. Our data shows us we have issues in our parking lot, and we need to increase security. So the numbers I gave you here is actually a weighted expense bid, or not bid, it was a quote from a local provider here in town. We have switched our security contract with one provider to the other, and so Steel Bison tells us for $28 an hour, they will train, they will be responsible for all the taxes, they will be responsible for if there's turnover. You know, we have, as a contract, using a contracted provider, we have no unemployment. If somebody leaves, if they don't work out, it is simply they bring somebody else in. One of the things we really like with this vendor is that if there's a no-show, because we all get sick and call in sometimes, right, they have enough capacity to be able to have somebody there at the library on site within, I think they said like 20 minutes, or maybe it was 30 minutes, but it's rather quick. So I'm asking you, with respect, to help me provide security for our downtown library. We don't have issues with security in Edgerton, so this is unique to our library here in downtown Casper.
Mr. Chairman, I'm glad you told that story because I've seen a lot of that myself. And you said it for me much better than I could say it to the commissioners and myself, because we have another area with similar problems. And people are very concerned, nervous, worried, afraid. And so I want you to know that I, as one commissioner, I can only speak for myself as a commissioner, I'm 100% behind providing security for all of our employees, because times are different, times are changing. I don't like it when I get up in the morning and read the newspaper and somebody's gone in and shot a bunch of kids and a bunch of people, and a 6-year-old boy goes in and does the same thing. And so we here in Casper and Wyoming think we're sheltered, but we're not. And I've watched the parking lots over at the library. I've watched the parking lots here when I was on the city council. I watched that library parking lot. I wanted a police car stationed there all the time, you know, but here comes these women and their children, and then I've seen what I believe were drug deals happening there.
Yes, sir.
I walked my dog there intentionally, took pictures, visited with different people. So I know it's a real deal, and I know the commissioners know it's a real deal. And so thank you for telling us about it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner.
Lisa, thank you. I'm not sure if the timing of that vivid incident, the security incident that you just reported, I think that was after your presentation to council, city council, right?
Yes, sir. So that was just last week that I visited with her.
And I think it's sad that I get the feeling sometimes the city doesn't recognize some of these issues, security issues, or maybe they don't appreciate them, I think, to the appropriate degree. Go over with us briefly the funding that you do get from the city, if you would.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. So to the point of the city, I did request security funding or funding for additional security through 1 cent from the city of Casper. I also included, and I think that was, I should have that number in front of me, I apologize, but off the top of my head, I believe that was weighted expenses for an entire year for a full-time staff member. Remembering that the library is open most of the year, 7 days a week, at much longer hours than most traditional government offices, right? So our hours are longer. So we're not talking about just one person. We're talking about a couple of officers just to do one position. And so I believe that was $280,000. I'm going to look at Greta real quick. She didn't bring that either. I can get that number to you. And then I also asked, I believe, for $240,000 for 1 cent funds for books and materials. Because as you know, that's how we fund all of our books and materials for our Natrona County residents. They did provide funding, as the presenter, Kelly from CAT, mentioned before I was here. That's not finalized. I know you're aware of that. But it looks like they're going to fund my books and materials request. It is yet to be seen if it's going to be restricted to books and materials, or if that's going to be something that I can use at my discretion between books and materials and security. I really don't know. But their discussion was, the final discussion was books and material. I have also been working with the city for, it's not quite a year, but they have a coalition that is addressing some safety and security in the downtown area, and the impact of homelessness in our community and how that can be addressed. And so I believe a big part of that was started because of issues like the issues at the public library. And I did tell the city that while we are a county facility, that the vast majority of our cardholders and current and active patrons at the library are also City of Casper residents. And in my mind, that helps when they are looking at why a county facility is asking for city 1 cent funds. It's because 1 cent follows people, and we are servicing and providing services to those people. I don't know why security was not something that rose to the top of their funding decisions, but it was a discussion. And in those discussions, it was brought up about CPD, Casper Police Department, and how much it would cost to have an officer there. I will say I really appreciate Chief McFeeters. He is a big supporter of public libraries. He has family in the library business, and so I know that he understands the dynamics of a public library, how when you serve everybody, and that sometimes you're the only public service in a community where everybody is welcome through the day, that sometimes it creates dynamics of its own. We do it at the Natrona County Public Library. We have code of conduct in place, and it's very clear. It's pretty easy to understand what disrupting other people's rights to use a public library could look like. And then we are consistent and prompt at how we address issues that are negative. And part of that includes calling Casper Police, who respond usually in, anywhere from about 2.5 to maybe 4 minutes. There are times when they're a no-show, but we know that that's because something else is happening that, exceeds our needs. But we do have a good relationship with the Casper Police Department and them coming to assist us. But I'm hoping, Commissioner Nicolason, that we're not calling Casper Police to come in assistance because we have an issue that requires police response. I'm hoping that we have a security presence that's strong enough and consistent enough and in enough places where the people who are doing wrong don't do it at the library because they know they're going to get caught. I don't even know if that answered what you were asking about the relationship with the city, but that's pretty much where we stand.
It does, and I think that the security as a preventative measure is really prudent.
Well, and I think doing preventative security is really the only way to address the problem. If you're always just chasing the problem and trying to arrest or detain the problem away, it's still a problem. You have to prevent it before it happens.
Mr. Chairman, when I was on the city council, I looked into this issue, and I can tell you there's a political issue that has existed in Natrona County a long time, and I think it's really antiquated. And you touched on it, and that is, I get asked, well, is it, your comment was it's a county facility. And so when I wanted a police car there, I said, well, it's a county facility. And I said, yeah, but most of the people live in the county, they're Casper residents also. So when I look at anybody from Natrona County, it doesn't make any difference to me where they live, what city they're in, what they do. We have to follow certain statutes with respect to what the county commissioners do and with what the city does. But we had this issue with the schools. And it was quite a battle when I was there, but I finally got a resolution that I drew up and passed, and the school board endorsed it, and we acquired, I think, 8 officers and 8 police cars, and now you see a police car and an officer presence because they hadn't addressed it. I even offered to buy the metal detectors going into the high schools, but that wasn't well received by the public, I don't think. Now I think that the technology has changed on that considerably. But I've also wanted them to move the bus station from over by the library. And I've talked to them about that. And they were going to perhaps move part of it at least down to the Mission and make a drop off there. But I think that needs to be changed. And so it's this political issue that we have to overcome, because this isn't a county-city thing. It's a county building in the city where most of the people in it go in there from the city of Casper. So I don't know what the exact solution is. I've even thought of asking the sheriff if he could park a car over there. I haven't done that yet. I don't know whether they even have the manpower for that. But I know that everybody is concerned about that. And that bus station, I wish it would get away from the Nicolason and it would get away from the library. I think that would solve a lot of problems. But some of the things that happened over there, and then what's happening downtown, which the commissioners haven't really heard thoroughly yet, because a lot of that is really confidential as to some of the incidences that have happened that require security. And so security, so thank you very much for talking about the security at your facility, because I agree with everything you've said. And I know Mr. Nicolason is very concerned about it himself.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Mill.
I've actually got some questions.
Awesome.
I'm not going to sit here and pontificate.
You leave that to me.
I hope I have
Ben.
answers, Jim. Commissioner Milne.
So looking at the, some of your documentation on the 1 cent request, you have the larger numbers that we put in to the schedule. Now, they're not broken out per year like we've got them scheduled out for the 1 cent. You've just got the main large number. You're aware of that, right?
I believe in my original request, I didn't bring the 1 cent with me, I so apologize for that. I believe in my original request, I included the number, and did I not include a breakout of how? Oh, thank you. This is what you broke out.
Right, so the
yes.
library material, your 1.2, that'd be 300 per year for
Yes, sir.
license.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Mhm.
The tractor, that's going to be within the 24 cycle.
Can I pause right there and just say something?
Go ahead.
You have no idea. I mean, I tried to articulate, and I know I did with Commissioner Nicolason as our liaison, how much we needed that tractor and how much we appreciate that you understand we've got a lot of space to clear snow, and because of our hours not falling under the same umbrella. Thank you for that.
Okay. Yeah, and that kind of segues what I was going to say here is with that tractor, you're going to be able to take care of your portion of it at that point and kind of alleviate some of Tom's extra rounds and whatnot, right?
So currently how it works, and I'm really not looking to change the big picture on how it works, Tom Public, or his department, or somebody comes and does the big push through the parking lot. So this tractor would be hard-pressed to kind of do the whole parking lot, but they come and do the big push one time after a big snow. Or maybe like if it snows every night, they might come by every morning. But then they don't make multiple visits back through the day, nor do they clean sidewalks or anything like that. They just kind of push that biggest portion of snow out of the way. Then Fred, who works at the library, he will use this tractor, and he will come and make sure and finish cleaning. They don't have to get it great and tidy when they come to the library. Fred comes in behind them, cleans it up, then starts on the sidewalks, and if it's snowing through the day, which it often snows through the day, Fred keeps up with everything, so they just do one pass.
Okay. And for the new commissioners and whatnot, in year 27, we've got scheduled out 40,000 for an outreach van. Can you describe what that is versus bookmobile versus whatever, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. So our bookmobile is a large vehicle that carries a full collection, well, not full collection, but it carries a good collection and makes regularly scheduled stops throughout the community. Our bookmobile coordinator and driver also happens to have a degree in education, and so he also provides story times or whatever, and these are in different points in the community. That is different than outreach. That is a type of outreach. But we have staff members, our programming. I talked about our youth services has programming, our adult services has programming. So maybe we have a children's librarian going to a school district, and they're going to go in and provide programs in the school to the classrooms. So when they do that, then they'll have to take carts with books in it, not a full collection, but imagine, if you will, those old milk cart looking things that now have, handle and wheels. So they'll take something like that inside, and they'll often take some supplies and materials to do an extension, a craft on whatever the story time is going to be, and they're engaging with students maybe in the classroom or at a daycare. So that is the kind of outreach we use outreach vans for. We also use it when we go to, like if there's an event at the event center, the children's or the community-wide baby shower, let's say. And so we will have people attend that, and they'll take things like pop-up signs that market the library, marketing materials, books, or whatever we're doing at that particular place at that particular time. Currently, we have one outreach van. So a van is really the best approach, because when you're looking at staff members picking up a crate full of boxes, if you're going into the back of a truck, you're picking it up waist high. And if you're getting it into a van, you're picking it up like below your knees. And so it's a lot easier for, on OSHA, it's a lot easier to pick up and move those materials in and out of a van. And so we currently have one. Adding a second van increases our outreach capacity, because the examples I gave you were children, but we also have adult programming that is outreach.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And I just kind of mentioned also that it's a shame that, in my eyes, the city isn't stepping up to the security for downtown. It's not just you guys. Honestly, we had an issue with the Hall of Justice recently as well. So it's not y'all.
I heard about that.
It's a problem that the city doesn't seem to be addressing quite adequately. Beyond that, though, I know there's privacy issues and all that, but have you ever did a survey or study based off your cards as to see the percentages of where people live that actually utilize the library?
So we can run some reports straight out of the database, and Assistant Director Kate Much is our data queen for the library. Can I give you a title today, Kate? So she, we all have different areas that we excel, and she has many, but embracing data and the value of data is one of hers. But we can run reports based on zip codes. But as we know, there are some zip codes that span, it could be, Mills, could be city, so that's really as closely as we can drill down. And we can run those reports that don't include like patron names. That's just by zip codes, and we can get some numbers. We can also run reports that give us how many of our cardholders are under a certain age. Is it 17, Kate? Under 17, and how many are over 17. But we can't run a report that say how many are 45 years old. So I know you had asked the presenter in front of me about ages.
I think it'd be interesting to see that zip code percentage, if you can throw that out. And just
I can
email it to
certainly
us
do
real
that
quick.
and get it to you. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just to add to that, there's, I forgot, I never can remember the name of the electronic device that does this, or the name for it, but what you can get is, friends of mine do this, they know people walk into a restaurant, and if you have a cell phone on and you leave, they know you were there. And they then send you a text saying, "Thank you for ordering the lobster, we hope it was good." when Trump had his big rally up here, they did that and found out that about 65% of the people there weren't even from Wyoming. So you could do that at the library, and I don't think it's that costly to do it. You can, it's totally legal. It almost sounds illegal. And I wish I could remember the technical name for that. I'll get it and I'll let you know.
It's geo-targeting, what is it? Geofencing or geocensus or something like that?
Yes, something like that.
So I do think, thank you for that. That is actually an excellent idea, and I'm glad that you brought that up. However, I would really want to check into, I think it is, as you said, it sounds illegal, but it's really not. And a lot of private entities or different people use it for marketing, for tracking, for knowing who their audiences are. However,
If you have an Alexa
you're a
in your
public
home
library-
and a Siri, they're doing it.
right, they are. But when you're a public library, tracking personal information becomes a whole different ball of wax. And we actually have state legislation that guards what we can track and what we can do with that. So if that was something that as a public library we could or we choose or we decide we want to track, then even though they're Natrona County people, I am not the custodian of those records and can't use them how I want to. They belong to the state under state statute.
I see.
So while that could be something that I could explore, I don't know to what end
We
because I
have to be
couldn't use.
legal about all of it, I understand.
Because I
that.
couldn't use the data. Plus, there's that whole creep factor of you're going to a public library and people are, I don't know, that kind of feels a little wrong. But like you say, there's a lot of things about it that it's truly not wrong.
Well, I found out about it when I hit a couple restaurants in Denver, and I'd get texts, and they knew what I ordered, and then I said, well, they said, we track all that on this, whatever it is. They hire a company to do it. So, but it's this issue that's in everybody's mind, well, how many people go to the library and they're from Casper or just from Natrona County? I just think that's an irrelevant issue myself, because it's our building, yes, but the police department are currently housed in our building. Well, our building is Natrona County. They're all, the police department is all taxpayers, we're all taxpayers. To me, there's a certain place, it has its place, and a certain place, the distinction doesn't. And I don't think the distinction should apply to the public library that serves Natrona County. I think we should give security, period, to all of our entities down here, because a lot of the people that work in them don't live out in the county. They live right here in the city. So it's just, to me, it's in a way, an insane use of how we want to say no to somebody, or how the city wants to say no to somebody. And I wish we would just drop that personally. And I'm only speaking from my personal standpoint.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions related to the budget? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sometimes you can't wait.
How are you? Good.
Mr. Friel, how are you? Good. Hanging in. It's probably electrocuted or something. You were just told. It's probably electrocuted or something.
You wouldn't do that.
Okay.
Morning, ma'am. How are you? Just peachy.
How are you?
And if you want, you can go ahead and begin.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So mostly I wanted to say thank you for having us come and talk with you today. I have Mike Cometto, who is on the Board of Health with me. Interesting conversation at the end of the last presentation, being city, county. As you know, we are city and county, so we have lots of discussions in this area. So, but it is our privilege to serve Natrona County. So I put together just a brief presentation, mostly just for facts on the funding streams that we have between the city and the county. We operate off of 32 different budgets with 35 staff. However, as of today, at this moment, we're at 31 with 4 openings, and has occurred in the last couple of weeks. So mostly, as you know, we prevent disease. That's our main focus in our agenda. We want healthy people so that we have a healthy community and healthy economic area of concern. We want to improve health, so we do a lot of prevention, education, and those kinds of things. We're an independent county in the state perspective, which gives us increased autonomy, allows us to provide more and different services than other county health departments do. But it also is a catch-22 because we really don't belong to any one thing. And we saw this last year. So as you can see, the previous funding streams, I left fiscal year 21 in there just with COVID, so you can kind of see what that looks like, as well as fiscal year 22. When you look at the specific grant awards, that is from the Wyoming Department of Health, the University of Washington, professional organizations, and private foundations. We try to ensure to keep COVID separate due to the fact that those funds will end June of 2024. So our funding that we had for fiscal year 23 and moving forward, we do anticipate vaccine to go to a private entity where we're not sure what that looks like or the impact that it will have on public health. I also provided for you a funding comparison of the city of Casper and Natrona County. I do get asked every single time, how many people do we serve versus the county? Every year that is brought up. Again, this year it was also. You'll see in fiscal year 21, we did take a cut in the city funding. They asked for that due to the impacts that they were seeing with COVID, which we now are back up to 575 with the county at approximately 670. When you look at the funding that we received from the Wyoming Department of Health, which is $462,233, it pays for the county health officer, adult health, board of health, disease prevention, environmental health, maternal child health, investigation, sexual health, and emergency preparedness, as well as HIV case management. Those are things that are required. Most all of them are required by state statute that the health department provides. The other side of that column are the grants. These funds can only be used in that exact funding stream. So we can't move money to purchase supplies or anything like that. It has to be very specifically to that grant. So when you look at the state statutes and things that are required, we're looking at the administrative level, environmental health, which we do get fees for some of the services that they provide, but most of it is just basically funding that we receive from city and county. The building expense, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. Some of the things that go along that, liability insurance, maternal child health is one area that we're extremely concerned about, and one of the ones that we have the most impact in the community. Disease prevention and adult health. The public health office is the only ones that can provide LT 101s, which looks at individuals who are qualifying for Medicaid to ensure that they have the appropriate level of services and that they continue to qualify. So a health department is the only one that can do that. As of present, we have 2 staff members that do that. We've had an opening for another person to come in and help with that, because what we found is one person goes out sick, it is a tremendous lift by another person to do that.
However, we've not been able to secure a nurse for that position. What makes us different is we have increased costs with medical supplies, vaccine, birth control, and lab testing. Those are areas that continue to rise, and we have no control over them. We do access as much as we can as a government entity, 340B funding, through our Title X services, et cetera, trying to make all the savings that we can. But this year has presented challenges that, 4 years ago, I came and presented to the commissioners. Just a few of you were here at that time. That was the first action of my new position. So never really had a good start to see what a normal year would be, and I think this year is one of the ones that we're starting to transition over into that. So I did a market study, found that the majority of the staff were under minimum compensation, including the nurses that provide our services, which makes us unable to be competitive. We're actually losing we're losing staff to the state. They have taken environmental health staff, our administrative staff, our nurses, program specialists, because they pay higher. That is not something that I've seen in the 16 years that I've been at the health department. We're not able to attract or sustain employees. Our retirement is our best function, but if you're talking to a younger person, oftentimes they don't recognize that as a bonus. We work 8 to 5 most every week of the year. There are times that go outside of that. But we also see an increase in the need for supplies and meeting the needs of the community. If we look at county health rankings, we're 19th out of 23 counties as far as health factors and 17 out of 23 as far as health outcomes. So we are a very unhealthy county.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
So when we look at county health rankings, so that there's an organization that goes and looks at how healthy a community is. So when we look at Natrona County, we are 19 out of 23 counties as far as our health factors, and we're 17th out of 23 as far as health outcomes. So when we talk about the ability to access nutritional food, walking, obesity, smoking, suicide, maternal child health factors, all of those things contributed to it. And so we're one of the least healthy counties as far as others in the state of Wyoming. Obviously, like, for example, Teton would be up on the top level of that. They have a lot different structure than we do. So that's one thing that I would like to address that hadn't been an opportunity due to the fact that we're spending so much time with COVID. As I said before, we've had an opening for a nurse for over 2 months, but we're not even competitive. A fourth of my staff have been there for more than 3 years, which means we're starting to see a whole new turnover of the staffing that doesn't even know what COVID was like. Many grant opportunities have been left on the table because they don't support full-time positions. For example, lead and cardiac, they'll give you funding to get a program started, but they don't pay for salary. It's not enough for a person. The gambling funds that we received from you all, $81,000 does not, it would pay for a position or we do something with it, right? So it's very difficult to find people to function in that. We do have multiple, if not all staff, operate in 2 or more programs. The time codes that we have for each program, sometimes there are up to 5 that a person will be working in just in order to make everything function. Maternal child health, which is one of the areas that we make the most difference for prevention, ensuring babies are born healthy, moms have the services that they need and that they're continuing to be healthy, and they follow them through age 2. So there's a slide in there that talks about, having to see the number of births that we have. So we see 90% of all Medicaid births, that is a state statute, as well as 75% of all Natrona County births. So we're not able to get all the services, and this year, due to the funding stream, we have a person that is retiring that we will not be replacing her position, and another one that is going back to school and is reduced down to 3/4 time. But it is the program that is proven to save millions of dollars with prenatal care, improving birth outcomes and healthy babies. Special considerations of having the grant, as I said before, we do as much as we can as far as cost sharing. Our copier expense is spread across all programs that are able to pay for that, crossing over wherever we can. We also have some grants that accommodate supervisory or other positions. For example, our PIO is also the prevention manager, so there are dual roles that the grants allow us to have that we might not be able to support. And we also have fees 8% fees that we can utilize to support the administrative costs. And we always try to buy locally. So for example, in our prevention program, she purchases gun locks every year. She buys those from Wyoming Gun Company as opposed to going outside of the community. So whenever possible, we buy locally or work with our local partners. And we'll continue develop and work on our immunization program, travel physicals, and we provide CPR. And our CPR classes are full every time that one is scheduled. So yes, I did ask for a 10% increase in order to continue to do business. I know everybody has probably asked for additional funds, and I know it makes it hard for you all, but I would have to say I'm very concerned about the future and where we're going. We did break it out as far as the administrative and environmental health of what the county provides and what the city of Casper provides. I know Kelly from CAP was here earlier, and we do enjoy working with her a tremendous amount, and we've only just begun starting to figure out those creative ways to reach more people. Sharing the nurse practitioner was the only way that we could have pulled it off initially. Looking at the mission and possibly other partnerships as we go. We've hit the ground running since she started. We also are working on an aggressive lead program. We're seeing an increase in the number of children that have been exposed to lead at a risk factor level. So we are working with the state to develop that further, that we could possibly do more testing. We are loading that into GIS so that we can see if there are any trends or any areas in the community to see if it could be housing or environmental. We're also working on wastewater surveillance. The state will be working with us in July, starting in July, where we'll be able to identify illnesses that are in the community that we may be able to work on, as well as vaccination rates by seeing or having ideas of cases that come up that we are not prepared to serve. We're always looking for ways to be more self-sustaining. We're adding the gambling funds, as we talked about before, and the state is actually giving us some funding for workforce development, which can be from both ends of the spectrum, retention and sign-on bonuses, et cetera. My biggest concern is stability with the existing staff that I have and keeping them. It's very disheartening to come to work in the morning and the first thing that you get is a resignation because they're going somewhere else because they can get more money or more flexible schedule. My belief is being a public entity, our people have to be in the office to serve the public. Sure, some of our grants could work from home or in a more flexible situation, but as part of like the emergency response, we like to have everybody in the building so that they can meet the needs of the community, whatever that is at the time. So, do you have anything to add? This time, any questions that you may have? It just is a very challenging time, and I do recognize that it is for everybody, so.
Commissioner Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anna, first of all, congratulations on being Casper College's Distinguished Alumni Award recipient this year. Commissioner Millen and I were at that and really appreciated that recognition for you and what you've done for our community. So
thank you.
Your last slide shows your budget requests to the city and the county. Mm-hmm. And just, can you tell me how you allocate those? Because in some cases they're even, in some cases you've got the county as being heavier weighted or a greater, higher funding request, and in other cases the city. How does that come out?
Right, so a lot of it depends on the balancing between getting grant funds, state funding, city and county. So it's really not weighted as far as what programs are served by the city more so than the county.
Okay.
It's just trying to make the ends meet across the board.
Have you heard from people leaving the health department to to wherever? Are they allowing flex work? And, I mean, it sounded like that, one of the big issue may be salaries, but another one is the kind of flexible working location.
So definitely in the program specialist area, they do have the ability to be a little bit more flexible. The two that we have recently lost in the last 2 weeks have gone to a more flexible schedule. One example is at the state level, hired for the same position, is able to work from home 4 days a week and in Cheyenne 1 day a week. And I can't compete against that. It gets into even a little bit more deeper, like how to make that work in our setting. You know, nurses can't work from home. The front desk would not be able to, and we couldn't do inspections from home. So it's something creative that I have not figured out at this time. But yes, most of them, more of the program specialists are moving into that realm of being able to work from home. But our clinical staff and the inspectors, et cetera, would not be able to do that.
Of the 4 open positions you have, there's 1 nurse or nurse practitioner?
There's 2 nurses that we have open and 2 program specialists.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, what is the salary for nurses you're trying to hire now?
So this year, with following the market study in April, the board allowed me to raise the nurses to a minimum, not even remotely close to where they are in the community. We're starting them at 60,000, where the average is 67.
So you don't pay them by the hour?
We do pay them by the hour.
So what is the hourly rate?
I just looked at that this morning, 20. I do not have that off the top of my head.
Well, I'm well aware of your problem with nurses.
Yeah.
My wife, where she works, have the same problem.
Mhm.
And then, of course, our new owners of our hospital reduced some nurses, and that's how some left, and other people acquired them to their,
Right.
much to their happiness. But I understand this issue of competing. You have to compete. And I don't think any of your requests are out of line, because I believe that the county health is extremely important. Maybe it's one of the most important things we do, is the county health. And when I say county health, I'm including Casper residents, because they're most of the people in the county. But somehow that long time political issue has just been perpetuated and perpetuated and perpetuated. And we're all just people. We're all human beings. We all live in Wyoming, and here we are.
Yep.
And we want everybody to do as well as they can. So what happens if you lose a couple more people and you don't have the money? How do you get your job done?
Thank you for that question, Commissioner. That is going to be the biggest challenge. I'll be talking to you here shortly about a new building, but my biggest fear is burning out the staff that I have, because then they acquire the job that needs to be done. So we have grants that we signed that said we will do these tasks. If I lose that person, someone else needs to fulfill that in order for us to not drop the grant. So, like I said, most people have 2 different jobs. Some actually have more than that, because
Yeah.
I can give them those responsibilities, but I'm really running a great risk of burning them out. It's becoming really concerned, like, at what point will we be able to continue to function? I don't know. Do I have big plans? Do I have big aspirations? Absolutely. But I can't seem to get secure enough to even start to consider those areas.
Very famous guy in our community who's in the legislature and coaches the NC Mustangs,
Yes.
made a really great statement one time. He says, if you want to be big, you got to think big. So thanks for thinking big. And I congratulate you on your award from Casper College. I got invited to that by President Devine, but I had a problem with my scheduling, I had to be out of town, but
Thank you.
I figured you deserved that, so
Thank you.
I'm glad you're working for the county health department. Hope you get your building, and I know that everybody here is behind that, so thank you for coming here.
Thank you.
Commissioner Milne?
Sure. Thanks for coming in today. Good seeing you. I noticed in your description, and we've talked about this a little bit before, I was just kind of wondering if you had a little bit of an update as far as legislatively. What are we doing with that? Have you heard anything as far as increasing that, or?
Yes. Thank you for bringing that question
I'm here for you.
light. So basically, you'll find that I went to Cheyenne because the city of Casper asked me to please go and ask the state for additional funds. Yes, I've been in the position for 4 years. I did not know that in 2011 would have such an impact on what we're doing today. So at the time that we went independent, in 2015, we were allotted $463,233 from the state. That is locked in unless I make changes with that. So we have to make a budget request to the Wyoming Department of Health, prove our need, and then they would need to ask for legislative support to increase the budget. All of this needs to happen by August 31st. Eric Nelson has actually been working with me from the city in regards to this area, mostly because he's charged by the city manager to figure out a funding support from the state. That is going to be something that's going to have to take a lot of coordination and unified work on that to ask for that increase and have the support behind that. So gathering a lot of data and making that request. When I talk to other independent counties, which there's one in Sweetwater, Gillette, and Cheyenne-Laramie County, interestingly enough, I found out from Cheyenne-Laramie County's health department director, they get $1 million from the city and $1 million from the county. Wow, is all I could say. They operate very differently than we do. For example, Sweetwater is only funded by the county. They're not funded by the city, actually, and they work for the Board of Health. So there's a different way that people have budget requests and what you see with our budget and how they do that, our revenues and that area and making up the difference. It's all in state statute, and that's what the city manager and Eric identified was the requirement of the state statute of providing all of your information, what you have available, and making up the difference. I just talked to Mike about having to have a conversation with him about that. So there's a lot of things that I have to figure out that have never been on my radar before, so.
Is there anything we can do to help you with that?
Yes, you will be asked to provide support. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I think Eric recognizes the need to very much like have a unified effort as we move forward. So the city and the county Board of Health make it like very organized so that we're not coming at different angles and asking for things, but coming very forward that Natrona County has seen, the funds that we received were based off of who at that time, when they cut ties from the Department of Health, that was the funding of what it took to run the health department. And so that is what the money was locked in at. So obviously since 2015 till now, there's been so much that has happened. Now granted, the state does give us additional grants that we utilize. But yes, that is a huge project that is on the horizon.
Since they're taking your employees, you'd think they'd want to help.
Yes, one would think. And they will get additional raises in August. And so I am concerned we'll lose additional staff.
Thank you.
Anna, do you know which board that is that makes those decisions as far as supporting it
For the
for the state?
For the legislature.
Yeah.
That is the Health and Labor, which that is not one that is super fond of public health at this time. I do think there is possibilities and some work. Forrest Chadwick, who was on the Board of Health Liaison for a number of years, he is on that committee. A gentleman from Mills, drawing a blank.
Kevin O'Hearn?
Kevin O'Hearn is also on that. I do know that there's a couple of medical providers on that committee, but Health and Labor, and I have been attending and watching some of those meetings just to kind of get an idea of how and what they look at. But I do have concern coming forward.
Well, if there's anything we can do
Absolutely.
to support that from our side, please reach out to us and let us know.
Okay, thank you.
Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't.
Well,
So,
it's going to be something that I am definitely going to work on. I have a neighbor that I spend time talking with. You know who he is. So we'll be talking to him for guidance as well on that.
That's too bad he's not on that
Exactly.
board, so.
Yeah, but there is a lot of work to be done.
And speaking of Mills, you've talked to them about funding as well?
Yes, and Mills provides us with a building that we're getting creative to try to bring more services to that, where we're partnering with CAP and WIC as well to bring in. But they don't have significant funds either, but they're working to get to that point. And I did provide an annual report for you today that does talk about the numbers, et cetera. Anything else?
Any other questions? Okay,
Okay, I guess I'll see you in a little while.
all right. We're up next. Thank you.
Are we gonna wait a half hour? Yes, everybody's, okay.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
11:45.
So we have.
Should have, hopefully today, the spreadsheet for funding tools, hopefully.
Now, is Nick gonna get us, this current fiscal year to date, or is he gonna also give us projections for next? Which
That's what
also
he's
is kind of the
looking for, was
assessor.
the property.
Okay.
Assessments, projections from Tom.
So we're gonna have both revenue numbers, the current fiscal year and next fiscal year projection?
That's what's in
Okay, is that
that
your
your-
understanding from Nick too? That's a fair answer.
That is.
So the conversation that we had this morning is we have until the third week of July in order to finalize it. However, due to some scheduling conflicts in the first part of July, we want to try and let's get this knocked out sooner than later. So as soon as we have those numbers, we can set up some dates. And I'm assuming we need dates, not hours, dates to go through this. So I would assume that once we have those numbers from Nick, then we can look at the schedule and get a couple dates on the calendar to get it done.
Are you thinking still about doing it this month?
Yes, most definitely.
So setting up, a day or two-ish?
Yep. I think similar to what we've had today, a day and a half minimum, and if we need the full second day or whatever, not race through it by any means, but,
Does it make better sense to do it the week of our next board meeting? or to do it the week after in terms of budgeting and everything else going on?
Yeah, that's, really up to you, that's kind of where I was thinking, because next week I have association meetings, so,
Do it in 2 weeks.
I think we've got a lot going on, so I was thinking the same thing. The 20th is our next meeting, so that week, maybe even do the 19th into the 20th, and then,
What's it time has it taken in the past, Jim?
Okay, it can take a couple days.
Last year.
Did it?
well, and you're here, so we might want to block the week out.
I might be a lot shorter in a budget hearing than you think.
We can do, we can potentially do a couple days